Welcome to today's finance series. It is a pleasure to connect with you this week. I'm going to be talking about decision dysfunction, the business killer. Interesting topic, right? Decision making is a critical aspect of business management and can make the difference between success and failure. So making an informed decision in a business largely involves gathering the relevant data, analyzing it, and using it to make informed decisions that aligns with a business goals and objective. Let us look at the practical tips that you can implement while making an informed decision. I'm going to be using the acronym GACEM. G stands for gathering the relevant data, analyzing the data. And when you're analyzing this data, you'll be looking at trends, patterns, and insights that can help you to draw out or make your decisions. You consider multiple perspectives, so don't look at it from one point of view. You need to look at multiple perspectives when you want to make a decision. The next point is on evaluating options. You need to evaluate different options and scenarios to determine the best course of action for your business. And finally, monitor and adjust. Monitor all the outcomes of your decisions and adjust your approach as you go ahead or as needed. There are tools that you need to use to make this informed decision. One of the tools that you can use or techniques when making an informed decision is your SWOT analysis. SWOT analysis is actually very helpful because it helps you to review both the internal and external factors that affect your decision. When it relates to costs, you need to do your cost-benefit analysis by comparing what your costs and your benefits are for all the options that you have on the table. And then this would help you to select the most economic viable option, right? The next is data analytics. So you can use softwares or you use the various tools available to you to analyze a large set of data and extract meaningful insights. Decision tree is also another technique that you can use. There are barriers to making informed decisions, particularly for small and mid-sized businesses. The first is lack of data, lack of relevant data. Insufficient analysis. Even when you have available data, the analysis done is not, you don't have quality analysis done to back, informed decisions. And sometimes there's a lot of bias, particularly for those who, are using the data. The next point is on time constraints. In a lot of instances, the time it takes to gather data, to analyze the data, it might be really time consuming. And at the end of the day, people just, try to leverage whatever is available to make a quick decision. The next point is on lack of expertise. Where there is lack of knowledge, it makes it difficult to make an informed decision. How do we overcome all these barriers that we've identified? The first is on improving communication. You need to ensure that within your organization, there is clear and transparent decision-making process. Invest in data analytics. Invest in tools and expertise that will help you to gather and analyze data. Remember, like I've said in previous finance series, that decision that is data-driven is always optimal in a lot of instances, at least 80 to 90% optimal, right? The next point is to develop a decision-making framework which must be as systematic as possible and as objective as possible. When you develop this framework, make sure that it is scientific as much as possible so that there's no biased decision at the end of the day. And then allow time for reflection. So when you analyze data, when you try to bring out insights, before you submit that report, before you make that decision, if you are the if you are the user of that information, take time to reflect on it, take time to look at what has been put together before you make that decision. And then finally, I would say for businesses, for CEOs, for entrepreneurs, make sure that you foster a culture of informed decision making. So when this is incorporated in your organization, you'd encourage your employees to cultivate the habit of always generating the right data that would be used to make a decision. Because remember, just like we say, it's garbage in, garbage out. If you put in the wrong data, you would make a wrong decision. But if you gather the right data, analyze it properly, you would be able to make the right decision. Remember, all these things are very important as you run your business. If you miss it in the areas of decision making, there's a risk that your going concern will be threatened. There's a risk that your ability to be able to generate new businesses, new leads would be impacted, because all these things sum up together to impact your bottom line. I hope this information has been very helpful. Thank you once again for your time, and do have a great one.